Nowadays, our time is very limited, and the gaming industry keeps releasing more and more titles every week. It's impossible to keep up with everything, and it's unthinkable to buy them all. Because of that, we always select the most suitable purchases to make the most of our time and money. But every now and then, we get attached to that bad game, the one that has absolutely everything to be bad, the one we recognize the design problems and technical flaws, but still brings a dose of mysterious fun. Are you curious? Then keep watching the video because today I bring you 10 games that are so bad, they're good. So subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Just mentioning Alone in the Dark doesn't say much, as the game has already had 2 reboots, and it's necessary to specify the version. Here, we're talking about the 2008 game, but it could also be the 2024 one on this list. Despite being technically bad and clearly released before it was ready, the game had some interesting ideas. Environment puzzles involving fire, which played a big role in the campaign, a real-time inventory that was the protagonist's jacket in first person, and a somewhat interesting combat. Many people at the time classified it as a mediocre game, full of problems and not up to the franchise's name, but others also mentioned the fun and different adventure. Alone in the Dark may not be a masterpiece, but it's definitely worth a look. When it came out in 2010, Alpha Protocol had a cool idea, to mix a spy plot and systems with RPG elements. However, it went unnoticed by many as just another generic release. In the reviews, the game didn't do well either, with many press outlets pointing out its combat mechanics, AI, and other elements as negatives. However, it triumphed in one aspect, its RPG systems and narrative choices, which had a timer for each response, long before Telltale. In 2024, Alpha Protocol was re-released on GOG after being removed from digital stores in 2019, and it has a legion of fans who appreciate the work of Obsidian. Yes, the same studio behind Fallout New Vegas and The Outer Worlds.
And I terminate the problem. Do it! Now!
You've got some decisions to make, Mike.
Actually, Mina, I have another trick up my...
Perhaps Deadly Premonition is the most controversial game on the list. When it was released in 2010, the game was a technical disaster. Performance issues, bugs, poorly copied mechanics from Resident Evil 4, and a lot of nonsensical storytelling. But, contrary to expectations, the game received scores ranging from 2 to 10. Yes, at the same time that some portals considered it one of the worst games ever made, like IGN, others saw it as a timeless masterpiece. But why? Basically, despite its poor execution, the atmosphere, story, and themes used by director Swery65 were impeccable for those who enjoy craziness. The game divided opinions so much that in 2012, it won the record for most polarizing survival horror game in the Guinness World Records Gamers Edition. So, there might be a hidden gem for you here, and as a curiosity, Deadly Premonition 2 managed to be even worse. After the colossal success of Final Fantasy VII, various spin-offs expanded the universe, some smaller and only released in Japan, and others bigger and more memorable, like Crisis Core. In the midst of these releases, we also had Dirge of Cerberus, a game featuring Vincent Valentine and serving as a sequel to the original game. Although the idea was incredible in theory, with Vincent as the protagonist and a combat system that replaced the turn-based system with action and firearms, the result wasn't the Devil May Cry of Final Fantasy VII that fans expected. The gameplay was clunky and unremarkable, in fact with more negatives than positives. However, looking at it again, things aren't as bad as they seem. Sure, the combat isn't the best, but the charm of Final Fantasy VII and finding out the fate of many characters is a pretty cool experience. Even before the term development hell existed or became popular, Duke Nukem Forever had an extremely troubled 14-year development cycle, and as a result, it couldn't be anything other than a technical mess, tasteless and outdated jokes, weak gameplay, and everything you can imagine. However, Duke Nukem Forever was released at a time when more cinematic games were becoming popular, and the genre now called boomer shooter was declining and close to disappearing. Without a doubt, this is still a pretty bad game in many aspects, but it has its dose of nostalgic fun from the 90s and 2000s, showcasing the DNA of 3D realms. Instead of mentioning a single game, here's the entire franchise at once. You've probably seen Earth Defense Force on services like Game Pass and PS Plus, but you most likely saw some low-budget gameplay and didn't pay much attention to the game. Even before Helldivers 2 became the success it is today, Earth Defense Force already offered insanely frenetic gameplay, with troops destroying aliens and giant insects. Think of it as a low-budget Helldivers 2. Because of that, the AI is weak, there are some technical issues, and a lack of polish in the campaign balancing. However, talk to any fan of the franchise and you'll get the same response. It's an extremely fun series, with enjoyable couch co-op, and the limited budget even brings a certain charm. Do you agree? As a Resident Evil fan, it pains me to include this game on the list. When Resident Evil 6 was released, expectations were high, one of the most ambitious and longest games in the series, with campaigns featuring Leon, Chris, Sherry, Ada, and other characters, the return of zombies, and a complete critical failure. At the time, Resident Evil 6 was a big disappointment, even though some mechanics and the Mercenaries mode were cool. But over time, a new light emerged. If embraced as a cheesy experience, especially when played in co-op, this is a surprisingly fun title. Does it still have many horrible elements? Yes. Is it a lot of fun? Yes.
Can't let your guard down for a second.
It's undeniable that Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin is cooler on paper than in practice. After all, the idea of retelling the events before the first game in the series with a darker tone and a Souls-like combat system is quite interesting. In practice, though, the game is a technical mess, with low resolutions, poor performance, even on PS5 and Xbox Series, let alone on PS4 and Xbox One, and visuals that seem to be taken from a PS3 game. And have I mentioned the so cheesy atmosphere that has created countless memes of Jack and his gang? Despite the bad description, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin has gained quite a bit of affection from those who gave it a chance. The combat is very enjoyable, the story has great twists, and the overall cheesiness practically crowns the experience with a retro charm.
Give us everything you've got. We'll always be a step ahead.
Okay, before throwing the first stone, let's try to take off the nostalgia glasses. Sure, The Matrix. Path of Neo was absolutely amazing during the childhood and adolescence of many. Using the bullet time from the movie, playing as Neo, and enjoying all the incredible powers we saw on the big screen in one game was cool. However, we have to admit that the game is full of technical flaws. The animations are clumsy, the graphics are dated even for its time, and the gameplay is repetitive and monotonous. Additionally, the game's plot is a mess, with many parts of the movie being omitted and others being added for no apparent reason. But it's exactly in this pile of flaws that the beauty of the Matrix Path of Neo lies. The game is so bad that somehow it ends up being good. It's like a car accident that we can't look away from, or a horror movie that is so poorly made that it becomes funny. Released in September 2020 by Crystal Dynamics and published by Square Enix, Marvel's Avengers was a game that divided opinions. With criticisms of generic character design, repetitive gameplay mechanics, and a perceived lack of originality, many players and critics dismissed it as just another dull superhero game. However, over time, an ironic appreciation for the game started to emerge, with many players claiming that it was so bad it's good. The gameplay, for example, was criticized for being repetitive and simplistic, with many players comparing it to an endless grindfest. However, for others, this simplicity became a positive point, providing a relaxed gaming experience that doesn't demand much from the player. The character designs, initially criticized for being generic and uninspired, also found their niche. Some players began to appreciate the cartoonish aesthetic of the characters, and even the superficial resemblances to the actors from the Marvel movies became a fun topic of discussion in the community. Do you have a really bad game that you have a special affection for? Let me know which one in the comments because I want to know. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. I'll be signing off for now. Take care and see you next time.
I think this life could be special if I get rid of the devils. They think that I am a